Hey everybody, I'm back. If you don't know what that means, you have another part of this video to watch, but I'm Hester. Welcome to my kitchen. This is part 2. Earlier today, what I did is I put together a delicata lentil soup in the slow cooker. And so I haven't touched it. I did cook it on high this whole time. And if you're around, come say hi. And if you're not, feel free to watch this later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the slow cooker. I'm going to adjust some seasonings. I'm going to add probably about 3 to 4 cups of kale that's been torn as well. Hey Linda! And so let's open it up. I haven't taken a peek, so we're going to see together what it looks like. Fingers crossed that the lentils are done. Okay. Oh, the one thing I didn't do is turn on the fan. Let me run around the side so that that will make the camera a little clearer. I forgot that the steam's going to come out of this too. Oakley dokley. All right. So you can see the stems of the rosemary, and we're going to take those out. It's okay if the rosemary leaves stay in, but we do want to kind of get those stems out just because they're unpleasant. And they are a little hot. If your hands are not quite as used to heat as mine are, use tongs to do this instead. And you see we've got that thyme, sprig of thyme, or bouquet of thyme, right? We decided it was a few sprigs of thyme in there. So what I want to do is I want to make sure, yeah, these lentils are cooked. Can you guys see that they have kind of opened up and they're smushy? So I'm going to take one that looks, yeah. The lentils are definitely well cooked. And then another thing you might check is if a potato is cooked or the squash. And I usually just do that if it's, I know the squash is cooked by now, if the lentils are. But that's one thing that you can do. So before I even put the kale in, I want to go ahead and taste this a little bit. And now a lot of you guys are back. So if you haven't watched the first part of this, wherever you are, or go to Healthy Slow Cooking Facebook page, and you can watch how I put everything together. And I can't give you a recipe off the top of my head because I'm going to have to listen to that again too. So this is just me making dinner with you, okay? So now that I know, the first thing I want to do is remove any stems that were at the top. The second thing, make sure everything's cooked. If not, I might put it on high and cook it a little longer. Or if it was an emergency, I could have poured it to a pot and then put it on the stove. So the broth, we had some bouillon cubes. Remember that. And I told you could get the bouillon cube recipe at plantbasedinstantpot.com or healthyslowcooking.com. Okay. There's no salt in here yet at all. And Raymond said, I lost my kale. You make your soup the way you want to. I want kale in mine. You could put spinach, you could put collard greens, or you could leave yours just like this. It's all up to you. And hey, Heather from the UK, it is awesome to have you here. And Jackie is here for this live, so yay. So again, if you're new to me, you may not know that I am not pushing my food preferences on you. However, I'm giving you recipes and telling you how I'm doing it and how you can choose to do things that suit your tastes and your family, as well as your dietary needs and preferences and allergies. Okay. Yeah, you can use whatever you want. I have kale. I like kale, but collards would be good in this too. So what's in here now, for those of you who maybe didn't watch the first video first, we've got potatoes, we've got delicata squash, we've got lentils, we put in, ooh, there's another rosemary stem. I have a feeling we'll find some more of those. I spend my life doing this. So it's real simple, lentils, potatoes, delicata squash. I used some salt-free bouillon cubes. And if you had chosen to use salted bouillon or broth, you're going to put it in at this time instead of earlier because it's going to slow the cooking process of the beans. So we also have, and I have all my herbs over here, we put fresh thyme, fresh rosemary in. You could use dry, no problem. We used onion powder and garlic powder so we wouldn't have to saute anything before we put it into the slow cooker. I put a little bit of paprika in, and I put some marjoram in as well. So I want some liquid smoke in there. So I'm probably going to put between 1/4 and 1/2 teaspoon of liquid smoke. You don't like smoke? Don't put it in. So this would mimic if you're transitioning or you're feeding someone who's not vegan, it will give it more of a bacony pancetta sort of thing because it's got that smoky along with it. And in tasting this, cool. The smoke upped it a lot. I think I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more marjoram in there. I'm going to put another 1/2 teaspoon of marjoram in to start with and another 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. Because when you slow cook or cook in the Instant Pot, it's going to dull some of those flavors, so you may have to add them back in. So I've had a lot of people over the years to go, I hate slow cooking because everything tastes the same. And everything tastes the same because you choose to keep doing the same thing and not reseasoning before you serve. So remember that. You are in control of what it tastes like in the beginning and what it tastes like in the end before you serve it. So there's nothing wrong with going ahead and adding a little extra oomph at the end. I'm also going to go ahead and put another 1/4 teaspoon of granulated garlic in there. And I'm going to put in, I use salt. If you don't use salt, you could put a salt substitute in there. You could also just add some additional garlic, onion, and maybe a little bit of ground celery seed, and that's going to give you the similar mouth bite that salt does. So that's a really good, I don't have a salt substitute. Okay, great. So I'm going to put probably about 2.5 teaspoons of salt in there. You got to remember, I'm not having salt really coming from anything else. You could also add in some tomatoes if you wanted to and get some of that tomato flavor, and that gives it a little more salty flavor too. And I'm going to put some pepper in here. I'm going to use the fine grind, and I'm probably going to put 1/4 teaspoon to 1/2 teaspoon, but probably closer to 1/4 and add more later because Cheryl isn't as much of a fan of pepper as I am. Okay. So I'm going to taste it again. Okay. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to add in one more thing and then put the kale in to cook for a minute. I want to put some balsamic vinegar. And let's talk about some options. You may have some flavored balsamics, like a fig would be good, or a smoky balsamic. And this was from that Whole Food plant-based boxes that I unboxed earlier in the year. Or you could just use a regular balsamic. I'm probably going to put, I'll start with 1/2 tablespoon. Let's see. There we go. 1/2 tablespoon. And I think I'm probably going to end up putting a tablespoon. It's going to depend. Ooh, this is a good one. Maybe it's good. I was about to say it's going to depend on how thick. This is one I just opened. And it is very thick and rich. If it's very thin, you're probably going to need more. And this can be done either with reduction or age. And let me let you see this a little bit. See how thick that is? And let's look from the side while I pour it in. So see, it's really, really thick. So I think that that'll probably be close to enough. I want to rinse all that's in there out. And that's going to add some richness. You could also put some wine in if you wanted to. If you were going to do wine, it's better to do it in the beginning so some of that in your face kind of cooks off. Yeah. So what it added was kind of a little bit more of a darker flavor. And you could also at this point add a little extra nutritional yeast. There was nutritional yeast in my bouillon. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not that interested. Okay. So I'm going to tear the kale up. I've already torn it up, but I want it in little bitty pieces. And what will happen is this is going to cook really fast. And so that's another reason why I can just put it in small. Sometimes I'll even chop it or mince it. And for kale haters like Raymond, you might not even notice it. I used to chop it up so small that Cheryl thought it was parsley on everything. And you know what? Now she eats it just fine. And if you don't overuse kale or greens, it's not going to have a bitter taste to it. This should just add some really yummy nutrition and color. See how much prettier it already looks, even though it's not as much as it's going to be. And it's a great way to start getting your family to eat those greens that we know are so healthy for us. And like I told Raymond earlier on, you can also choose to simply not use it at all, because it's your house. I'm not coming over there and checking to see what you put in your soup. Another thing you could have put in here, I'm kind of adding the sweetness with the Delicata squash and a little bit of the balsamic, but you could have actually put something like apples or pears. Another way to make this soup, instead of using the regular green lentils, is we could have used red lentils, and we could have put maybe just the Delicata squash. We could have used cauliflower or potato, and maybe put some cut up apple and pear in there. Then that would be a different soup, and we could puree it. It'd be a nice, really nice soup for Thanksgiving or any fall evening. And you could even put like some garam masala in there and make that kind of like a slightly sweet, nutrient-dense curry soup. And I love soups of all kinds. Soups, stews, purees. It's all good to me. Okay. And again, you don't have to, if you like kale and you like big pieces of kale, you don't have to really tear it up this much unless it suits you. It does not suit Cheryl. So I don't care either way, but that's why I mince a lot of things, because if you have a picky eater in the house, grown up or not, if you mince things, you have a way better chance of getting them to try it. And chances are, once they try it, they're probably going to like it. And remember, Cheryl didn't used to even eat broccoli when I first met her. And now she asks for asparagus. So that's pretty awesome right there. Okay, I'm going to mix this in. And actually, I'm going to turn it up to high again. And it just depends on how much you'd like these to cook. Right? But it definitely makes it prettier. But it's going to be super hearty anyhow because of the lentils, Delicata squash, and the potatoes, so it makes a really, really nice meal. Do you guys have any questions about how I've kind of done this or decided to season it? I will be re-listening to these videos and making a recipe and hopefully putting the whole recipe on healthyslowcooking.com, because it's been a while since I've put a new slow cooker recipe up. And it's slow cooker season. So I'm going to taste again. The kale isn't going to affect the taste that much, as little as in there. I'm going to go ahead and put a little more balsamic in there. And I'm just going to put it straight in. So you could also, and actually I'll let you see how this looks, you could swirl that on top of a serving too, as a really nice little doodah, you know, like, hey, look, we're having fancy dinner, honey. Okay. And then just kind of keep going back and forth, adjusting things like, well, Kathy said to put that much liquid smoke in it, but I don't taste it. So let's put a little bit more in. Actually, I kind of want to finish off. This bottle's almost done anyhow. And just add it in. But do it little by little so that you don't really overwhelm anything at once. Now, you may be thinking, I don't like liquid smoke. That would overwhelm me already. And that's great. And Linda's saying, if I were using red lentils, how would I adjust the cooking time? Well, that's kind of the beauty of slow cooking. So with slow cooking, things can be ready between 7 to 9 hours. Red lentils are going to disintegrate. So it's not like if we cook it too long, they're going to disintegrate more or less. So they're just going to, you could just leave it going for about 7 to 9 hours. It'll hold up to 9 hours easily. It might even hold up to 12 hours. I think that helped it a lot. Anybody else have any questions? Because if not, I'll show you how I'm going to serve it. And actually, we've got these cute little Halloween bowls with Lucy and everything. The Peanuts gang. Aren't those cute? So, and to me, some of this kale is cooked enough. It doesn't have to be just, you know, like Southern collards. And these are big bowls, but we're not really having anything else but this. So I'm just going to, it's kind of like in between a soup and a stew. And you could serve this over brown rice or quinoa if you wanted to, or add some brown rice and quinoa in there. That's totally up to you. Okay, so see I've got some of those nice potatoes. Get a few more pieces of, little pieces of squash in there. Maybe a little more broth. Okay, and then like I said, we could do something like this, because this is coming out super slow. If yours isn't coming out as slow as mine, then this isn't going to work as well. But you saw how slow and thick this is. If your vinegar is much thinner, like some of mine are, you're going to want to do that quicker. And we could put a couple of pumpkin seeds on there. Or if we had been super awesome, we could have put some Delicata squash seeds on there if we had chosen to do that. But that's it. And that's dinner. And you guys saw literally all the work. Okay, you didn't see me cut up a couple of potatoes and half a Delicata squash. And I guess you didn't see me tear up and clean the kale. Those things took minutes. Basically get the things together, put it in a slow cooker. This is why people like slow cookers and slow cooking, is because it's just pretty easy. You're just kind of throwing things in there. You may have to be mindful, put some things in at one time and some things at another time, but it's not that hard. When I'm saying before serving, I think in most of my recipes, the earliest is 30 minutes before serving. And that's about it. So I will try and get this recipe up, but it's just a lentil delicata soup for fall in your slow cooker. Any other questions, you guys? Because if not, and I'll see if Cheryl can put the videos together, and if she does, I'll get her to do that and put it up on YouTube, and I'll give you guys a link to that. If not, this is part 2. Go watch part 1 if you haven't seen it. Have a great night, and I'm going to enjoy my soup.